point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities. Never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are, who you're going to be. So prove to them, still amount to something. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Andrew, now available on computers, smartphones, laptops, iPads. It doesn't matter if you're in the United Kingdom, doesn't matter if you're in Canada, doesn't matter if you're in Japan, doesn't matter where you are. As long as you have internet and YouTube, the Keith Andrew Network, it's 24/7. So you can watch us on TV, on a phone, on a laptop, on a phone, on a laptop, on a computer. There's so many different ways to watch YouTube and enjoy the Keith Andrew Network. It is episode 1105. That is right, 1105 episodes on the Keith Andrew Network. We're here with two great guests, and we're going to start off with our new guest, Sharon. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sharon Pearson. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm an actress. I love to travel. I love to have fun. I have a great sense of humor. And yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
Well, Philadelphia, home of Rocky, and a home. Do you like professional wrestling?
I used to like when it was the WWF, and then they changed it to the WWE, which isn't the same, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, we can always talk about that later.
Okay.
Philadelphia is the home of ECW.
That's right. And cheesesteaks.
Oh, I love the Philly cheesesteaks. Ashley, what about you? Tell us a little about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley Farrar, and I'm local to Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm a former business owner and aspiring actress. So it's been a pleasure meeting with Keith today. We've done a little bit of work together and look forward to doing some more.
No, absolutely. And now the first question I want to ask, this is for both of you, so you guys can take turns. So the first question I want to ask you is, what drew you to acting? And Sharon, we'll start off with you. So let me rephrase that. What drew you to the acting area?
For me, initially, when I was a kid, it was an escape for me because I used to get teased like really, 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 really bad. And so for me, it was an escape from reality. But then I realized.
Yeah, absolutely. And could you repeat yourself one more time, because you did get cut off?
I've been doing this. You mean from the beginning when I was saying how I was bullied? Well, I was bullied when I was younger, and so it was an escape for me. But then I realized that I actually enjoy doing it. I like portraying different characters, especially those that are so different from me and who I am. So I really enjoy that.
No, absolutely. And I don't mean for you to repeat yourself. It's as you started to talk, then you got cut off. I didn't want to go to our next guest. People will be like, oh, you're an asshole because you didn't even let her finish what she was saying. So that's why I asked, if you could repeat.
No problem.
Now, ask the same question. What drew you to, let me ask you, let me point this out. These are theater questions. Now, I have acting questions, I have producing questions, and on these different cards, I actually am looking at. I'm actually looking at these theater questions, and I'm wondering, how can I use these theater questions for different questions? So, actually, the question I want to ask you is, what drew you to acting?
I've always been one that did like the dress up and the play and the pretend And it just seemed like a really natural, I don't know, next endeavor. I just started doing this about a year ago professionally. So it's kind of like reliving your childhood, but in my 40s. So it's kind of been just fun the whole time. Like, I haven't been on a set that I didn't like. I'm sure there's been people that didn't necessarily like me because I'm, pretty optimistic and I'm kind of a roll with the punches kind of person. And I'm like, oh, okay, well then let's do it that way. I'm not going to fight against anybody. So I think that it's been a really interesting year. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Now, the next question I want to ask you, number two, how did you get started in the acting world?
Well, for me, okay, back when I was younger, I got involved in like school plays. And then later on, I went to a so-called acting school / casting agency that turned out to be a scam. So I was really jaded. So I said, that's it. I don't want to act anymore. So I stopped for about 15 years. And then a friend of mine said they knew someone that needed somebody to be background in a film. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And so when I did that, I realized that I still loved doing it. So then I continued to go on and do, get other roles.
This is definitely a second career for me. Like, I've retired from the business world and actually kind of fell into this on LinkedIn. Like, there was a click here for, acting, modeling. And I was like, I didn't even know that was something that would be in that kind of world. And then from there, I just kind of like dove a little deeper. I was like, this isn't how I would want to, do that. So I went the proper route, found a good agent, and have been, pretty busy ever since, being extras. And I kind of have shied away from doing auditions and things like that just because I don't have any experience. And so it's been good doing like the extra roles and getting to see what other people are doing. And so I can kind of mimic that, how they handle themselves professionally. Like, I don't even know what like camera to look at. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I need to know some terms before I can consider myself, to be a leading type person. Does that make sense, Sharon?
Yeah, I know what you mean, because there were some things that like I didn't know. Like one time I went on audition and they were like, okay, we need you to slate, right? And I'm like,
So yeah,
slate?
you're like, I'm gonna
what?
look that up when I get home.
Right.
And they're like, that means say your name. And I'm like, well, why didn't you just tell me to say your name? Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, and
Yeah,
what parts you're reading for. And you know what I mean? I had same first experience. So I'm so glad I'm not alone. But then they're looking at you like, wow, this is the first time you've auditioned. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like, we should be able to like tell each other like, hey, before your first audition, this, and this are the 3 things they're going to ask you. And you're going to look like you're in the headlights.
I know. But it's sad. But it's sad because the business is so competitive. So sadly, people don't want to do that. But because the type of person that I am, I warn people things to look out for, red flags to look out for, agencies and things that, they just want to take your money. So
both of you just came up with great subjects. Sharon, we're going to talk to you about what are the red flags that you look out for.
Okay. The red flags to look for is no one is going to pay you a check without working. And there's this scam that's been going around for years. They might change the wording, but it's the same scam. It'll be like, oh, we're looking for people from 18 to 65, all levels of experience. We'll pay you $5,000. Then you have the other scam where they'll tell you, okay, well, we need you. We're going to pay you X amount of thousands of dollars, and then we need you to cash the check and send X amount of dollars to, production. And I'm like, in what world do they do that at? So
When
that's
did you
a red
become
flag.
payroll?
Yeah.
You don't
But
feel like
people
you
don't
should
know.
be payroll?
Yeah, exactly. But I feel bad because some people are so hungry to be in the business that they won't listen. I've got accused of being jealous and a hater and things because I warned people, you have to be careful. It's unfortunate, but they don't want to listen.
And Ashley, what was the one that you were saying before?
About red flags?
Yes.
I mean, I'm almost to the point now where if we can't have a face-to-face conversation, it doesn't need to happen. Like, I don't even believe in phone calls. Like, this is a Zoom. I consider
Yeah.
this to be face-to-face because it's saving a lot of money for everybody than me having to drive to Atlanta, Birmingham, Nashville. Not a whole lot happens in Chattanooga. But you know what I mean? Like, I appreciate the technology, but at the same time, like, if we can't at least do this, I'm not even going to respond.
Right.
Like,
So true.
and isn't that scary that,
Yeah.
like,
And you know what else is kind of scary too? Where there'll be a cat, like I'll see a listing or a casting, and it'll be like, DM me. Okay, there are certain, to me, the only thing that you really should have to DM them is if they want to give you like the exact address, because you don't want to put that out there. But basic stuff, pay, is it non-paid? Is it union? Is it non-union? Things like that. It's a red flag if I have to DM you for certain things. It just doesn't make sense to me.
All right, so let's play devil's advocate because I made a post and I said, DM me on Instagram. Was that a red flag?
That to me, that wasn't a red flag because you might not have wanted to put out like your information, so to speak. But what I'm saying is DM is like specific like information. Like you shouldn't have to DM people if you put a casting up. I'm looking for women.
Yeah.
DM me. Like, huh? What do you mean you're looking for women? What kind of women? What are you looking
yeah.
for the women for? Stuff like that. To me,
Well,
I
if they
I'm,
can't be specific, then it doesn't, they're not really looking for an actual person for a role.
right.
Like you should know within an age range, within a body type, within
Yeah.
a everything, because that's wasting everybody's time. You know what I mean? Like, don't let me show up for something that you're looking for a 90-year-old woman just because you didn't want to be more specific. Like, and that's if you're casting too wide of a net, red flag. Like there is no role
Exactly.
meant for a 10-year-old and a 50-year-old.
Right.
That's a red flag. You should be able to be at least a little more finite than that.
Right. And another red flag that I mentioned too is I saw a casting. Okay, sometimes I don't mind. I will do acting jobs that are like no pay, depending on what it is. But I saw this casting the other day. They weren't paying, and then then they have a nerve to talk about partial nudity. So you're not paying somebody, and then you want them to show their booty too. Like, come on. I'm just saying.
No, they're like those do not go hand in hand. Like
Exactly.
if you are expecting it would be just like asking someone to show up for any other job
Right.
and not be compensated for
Right.
it.
Right.
And I
Not
feel
saying that.
like
Right.
this
Not
is
saying I would show my
literally
booty, but still, like this
no,
is some
but
of the things.
I mean, but in general, this is one of the few industries where you can get away with having expectations that people will be on time and act professionally when you are not paying them professionally, no matter what the role is, whether it's partial nudity, whether it's anything. If you are expecting someone to show up somewhere at a specific time to do a job, there should be something behind it. I mean, Call me crazy, but this is really the only industry where you can have those expectations.
I get
You
it.
know, even the Girl Scouts get some sort of, kickback for walking around selling some cookies. They're all getting to go on trips or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, we'll put you in the credits." And I'm like, "That didn't pay for gas, but thanks."
Right. IMDb credit doesn't pay for anything.
No,
No. And it
absolutely.
really doesn't even pay for itself.
Right.
Now we're being joined by every guest. I do apologize. I forget to send you the link. That was my bad. But I do want to hear from you. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got into the acting world.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, hi, my name is Tracie Sperling. I'm from Falls Church, Virginia. So I was encouraged to get into acting from inspiration from my father. He was able to network with like a close friendly friend of ours, and he kind of like he was a writer. So as an author, he wrote books, short fiction, and other different types of novels, but he turned his books into movies. So he was in a short film like a few years ago. It was called Lives and Deaths of the Poets, and it's actually on YouTube. So since that was film, I'm like, well, if my dad can do it, like, why can't I do it? So I was kind of encouraged for motivation to kind of like pursue acting on my own. And I started with like short skits on YouTube. Some of my highlights included playing a mother with two kids who was killed, a young girl being chased in the woods by a guy dressed in an M&M costume, mostly like horror and like sci-fi fiction type genre is what I've been working on.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I do apologize for not sending you the link earlier. That was my fault. I I usually write things down, but I know that's no excuse, but I do apologize. But the
No
next
problem.
So the next question I want to ask, actually, let's do something fun. Let's last 10 minutes. I'm going to open up the floor to all of you. So we're going to stay with you first. Is there any questions you want to ask me, ask our guests? You can talk about anything you want, say anything you want. It's PG, uncensored, freedom of speech and self-expression. So starting off with you, what do you want to talk about?
Sure, yeah, we can talk about like interests and other hobbies I do other than acting. So I actually like paint in my free time. I'm into art, like I'm a very creative person. So I sell like my original acrylic paintings on canvas as well as incorporate my art as actual fabric designs for clothing and matching accessories. And my brand name is actually called COB Abstract Art, which stands for Creativity Outside the Box.
That's amazing.
Cool.
What about you, Sharon?
I wanted to know, how did you get started, Keith? Like, how did you get started in, this?
A long story short, I was diagnosed I fall under the spectrum of being retarded, and because I read and learn at a fifth grade to high school level, because I learn at a slower pace, that's why I fall under the spectrum. So when I graduated, I was pretty much pushed along. So I
Mhm.
said, my brother, I'm the youngest out of four brothers and one sister. I said, my brother used to say, I don't know what to do with. I wish I had $1 for every time I said this. He said, I don't know what to do with my life. And my dad says, talk to your brother. He can point you in the right direction. Talk to your sister. What about me? What about me? What about you? You're not qualified. You're not educated. You can't go to college. You don't have a bachelor's. You don't have a BA. Some people think I have a bachelor's in BS because I like talking out of my ass. But I said, screw it. I'm gonna show you with a disability. Look at what I can accomplish. I taught myself everything for 10 and a half years. Thanks to you guys, 1,105 episodes. I met a lot of great people. I met a lot of people that are kind of all right. I met people who are like, who are you? Who moved to rock? But
Wow.
For me, I like giving people an opportunity, and what I mean by that is by being on my show, you're making a new friend, supporting a good cause. People think that's a catchphrase, but I don't mean anything that I say. But it's just for an example, my grandfather used to say, "If I give you my word's my bond." And
Yes.
if I haven't said this in a while, if I have to die, one thing I want people to remember me is that he didn't know me through a hole in the wall, but he was nice enough to give me an opportunity to share my story be on the air. That's the whole reason. Yes, oxymoron. I do want to become famous, like all four of us, but it's not the fact you want to become famous. It's the fact of what legacy you want to leave behind. Everyone in my family are, mostly school teachers or writers. Why not be the first entertainer? Oh, I can't hear you. Yeah, you're Mike.
I said, that's right. I like that. Why not? People say, why? Why not? Boom. I like that.
I feel like I've said that more in the past year than I've said in my entire life. So I've literally I've told myself you're going to be a yes person. Like unless it's really going to compromise your morals or your safety. Sure, why not? You know what I mean? Like I'd like to try anything once. I've tried more different foods in the past year than I would have tried. You know what I mean? I consciously last year made the decision that unless it was safety involved, I was going to say yes to whatever my friends asked me to do, to whatever, pretty much whatever anybody wanted to do. And I've tried new things. I've gone different places. You know what I mean? Just when you get in this little pigeonhole of your everyday life, especially when I owned a business for 17 years, literally driving the same road to the same place for that long. It's like I didn't even know what I was missing out in the world. And I really don't know if I was missing that much because I've been fairly disappointed in some things. But at the other side of the coin, I'm like, wow, I would have never even, gotten up and done that or gone to see this friend. I would have said, oh no, I can't do that between Friday and Monday morning. And now I'm like, where did you need me to be? And on a Tuesday? Oh, and apparently I'm the emergency contact for a lot of people now. I'm like, oh, why am I picking you up? And they're like, oh, so-and-so put you as the emergency contact. I'm like, where are they? Like that they needed an emergency contact.
Hey, at least get paid for your time, right?
Right? I'm like, we're stopping at Bojangles on the way home.
Here's a funny subject I want to ask each of you. Now, Sharon, I'm going to ask you, have you ever put yourself in an awkward position? Let me rephrase it. That's not that type of show. Did you ever put yourself in an awkward position as in you went into something thinking it's a great idea, but you didn't know where you were and how it was going to turn out?
Yes. It's funny to say that some years ago, a friend of mine and I, we went to Baltimore to be background for House of Cards. So we get there and it was just interesting because like the production assistant was really nasty. She was just like unusually nasty. And I was just like, oh my goodness. But long story short, so we got there at 8 and we left at like about 11:30. So we went to go catch our bus at Megabus in Baltimore. The bus never showed up. And it was supposed to be like the last bus. So basically we were stuck in the middle of this parking lot. And we needed to catch an Uber, but we had to catch an Uber all the way to, it was weird. We had to actually catch an Uber or Lyft back to Philadelphia because we had to be to work at a certain time. So we went to catch the train and we went to catch the bus. It wouldn't have gotten us there in time. So I didn't know what we were going to do. So I called the Uber. Right after I get finished calling the Uber, my phone dies. So we're in the middle of this parking lot, one of the coldest marches ever. And I was just like, what am I going to do? I didn't know what we were going to do because I'm like, okay, there's two people in the middle of this dark parking lot. Like, they're going to think we're crazy. So that was the situation. So finally, somebody happened to show up and we were screaming. And luckily, they knew that it was us. And long story short, they actually drove us from White Marsh to Philadelphia. And we were very fortunate because the lady who happened to be the Uber driver needed to come to Philadelphia the next day anyway to visit her daughter at the Moore College of Art. So it worked out, but it was like $162. We ended up splitting it, but initially we didn't know what we were going to do because we were like, oh my gosh, my phone is dead. His phone was dead. So like, what are we going to do?
What about you, What about you, Ashley?
I have not been in that situation, thankfully. Like, that is like, well, and I'm one of those, I've got like 9 different chargers at this point because I never know when I'm going to be stuck somewhere. And I've been out in the middle of nowhere and your phone dies and it's searching the whole time. And that's what kills it, is that it's looking for the signal. And you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be here forever. Like,
and it was cold. That's what also I found out later on that speeded it shutting down faster was the cold weather.
I bet that is true. Because I know it does it in the heat. Because I'll get, well, my phone will just shut down in the heat. It'll be like, sorry, you're screwed. And you're like, but it's hot out here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, desperation can't, well, yes. Been desperate.
What about you, Tracie?
Luckily I'd never been in that situation before where I was literally like stranded out in the middle of nowhere. Like it was like a different city, a location that I was not familiar with at all, and no cell phone service. I mean, that would be pretty scary. Like I wouldn't really know like how to handle like an emergency situation like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's never great to be in that situation, but it's always good. I mean, if you're ever in a situation, at least it's a good preparation to say next time, always be prepared. But I do have a couple questions for you guys off the air. But actually, we're going to do an extra 2 minutes. My last question is for Tracie. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what made you say yes? How do you feel now, and would you recommend it?
So I was really excited for the opportunity in the first hand, and I was able to relate to it because personally, I grew up with a learning disability myself. I took special ed classes in school. I was always the kid who was teased and harassed for different things, name calling, other forms of harassment. So I was fortunately an easy victim to pick on. You know, I felt like I was a target, you know, because of my background. I didn't have too many friends growing up. So I was able to relate and understand the situation because like one of my mottos growing up was watch and learn. That was actually my yearbook motto for inspiration. And the idea is to try to prove people wrong. Like despite, you know, your weaknesses, you know, the idea is to have a positive attitude and overcome any obstacles. And if someone says, you know, you can't do something, you know, if it's really your dream or passion, definitely go for it.
Absolutely. What about you, Sharon?
I was excited because I love to talk, so I guess you can see. But I was excited because I wanted to see what it was all about. And I'm glad that I did. I'm really glad that I did because I really enjoyed it.
You know, I was excited to see what the show was all about because I felt like we had developed a pretty good rapport doing like the voiceover stuff. So I knew that I was at least going to enjoy the conversation with you. And then based on that, hopefully, you know, with the other people as well. So I thought this was a really nice little Zoom club.
3 weeks ago, we can definitely do a part 2. But until then, catch you later. Thank you and have a good night.